I'm Georgia Sarnofsky, one of the coordinators of the Synod's God's Work, Our Hands storytelling ministry. We help congregations share stories about how their giving is helping do God's mission of serving others. We never really outgrow our love of stories. Jesus was the greatest storyteller of all time. The photos you'll see in the background will scroll through the ministry of the garden while I share the story. Let's go back to 2020 in the small town of Shartlesville and dig into the story as told to me by Pastor Inga Williams, pastor of the Lutheran Church there. 3 years ago, she called on a neighbor in town who had a garden in her front yard. No, this is Shartlesville, and the Pennsylvania Dutch are used to having their yards looking just so. So she knew this was a brave woman who loved gardening vegetables more than public opinion. She told Pastor Inga that she didn't have room for pumpkins in her small yard, so Pastor suggested they plant some viney crops up on the church property. She agreed, and what do you know? She even had the seeds, the gardening skills, and the ideas. Pastor Inga consulted with council, and the members unanimously voted to get that garden started. Crops produced during that year, when the rise of nasty COVID was around, were sent to the neighboring UCC congregation's food pantry, and with the excess, they had physically distanced free produce giveaways. Moving into 2021, the garden expanded by another half. Each plant was watered with a recycled gallon milk jug with a little pinprick in the bottom. The plants were happy, but their backs were not. It took nearly an hour to water all the plants, which needed to be done nearly every day because the garden was in full sun. The black plastic used for weed suppression became a slip and slide while they were irrigating. Pastor Inga joined a cohort through Plain Song Farm for ministry leaders who were developing farm or land-based ministries and realized it could be worth asking the Synod to support their effort. Here's the great news. They applied and received a Witness and Service Ministry Team grant funded through congregational mission support giving. Moving on to 2022, it gets better. They were able to install a drip irrigation system that did not require filling milk jugs, and the weed suppression fabric was not slippery. The irrigation only required turning on the spigot and letting it run for several hours, which was a true godsend because they had some unexpected health issues on the garden team that limited their volunteer force. It was an extraordinarily dry summer, so the grant came just in time. In the summer that year, they had 21 people volunteer in the garden. They took produce to 5 food pantries or senior centers, including Cafe Esperanza in Reading, and welcomed 29 people into the garden at a joint vacation Bible school. Not only were they feeding their neighbors with free, fresh, pesticide-free produce, they were getting to know their neighbors, developing new connections in the congregation among volunteers, teaching the children about food insecurity and the joy of gardening, and passing on agricultural wisdom. What a year! The Hebrew word Eden means delight, and their garden was a place where they encountered the beauty of flowers, delight in the smell of herbs, and snacked on sun-ripened cherry tomatoes while they worked. In the garden of Friedens, they remember God is generous, and they now are inspired to pass on that generosity by serving others. They learned so much. On a beautiful spring day in 2023, there were 8 children and 15 adults from ages 0 to 92 to celebrate God's blessings. A few plants were lost in May that year due to the frost, but even worse, could it be? One of the women on the garden team lost nearly all of her tomato and pepper plants that she had grown from seed. What did she do? It was right here that other garden team members saved the day by immediately offering some of their extras as replacement. Generosity is alive. It's wonderful to see those relationships continue to grow. Pastor Inga gave me an update last week about their focus during the Vacation Bible School in 2023 being on the new creation and the 3 images we get in Revelation 21: clean water, food for all, and healing for all. Clean water was creek time. On day 2, they made hygiene kits for Lutheran World Response, and then there were in the garden on night 3. She shared how they talked about how God provides abundant food for all people, but how some people still go hungry. Jesus tells us, give them something to eat. The kids always love being in the garden and are proud of their haul. Digging potatoes is always the biggest hit, but I was also impressed this year by a 3-year-old who gently removed the red ripe tomatoes from the vine. Pastor Inga told me she loves watching the kids experiment with leverage and their own strength as they dig for the first time with a shovel or trowel. At the VBS in 2023, the older kids washed, sorted, and used their math skills to calculate how many pounds of produce they collected in that evening. They have planted this season a few Wednesday evenings ago. New additions this year are to incorporate more squash, gourds, and pumpkins to be used at the end of the season for decoration and activity with the Sunday school children. I think you will agree that Friedens' garden has been a delight to those who give and those who receive. Stories of amazing ministries like this are available on the Synod website for sharing with your congregation in a letter or a temple talk. Thank you.